Well, good morning, Rush Creek. Let's stand together. Before we worship, I just wanted to give you some encouragement. I was watching the Passion conferences this weekend, just so what people were saying, and Sadie Robertson had her little part, and she said, I may not be able to convince you that God is real, but you can't convince me otherwise. Because of what I've seen God do in my life and how faithful he has been. And that just hit me like a truck. I just started crying like, that's so true. No matter what I go through, you can't convince me he's not real. And we need to be so excited about our testimony because all that we have is the gospel and our story and what he's done in our lives. And we need to be so excited as we go into this year to tell everybody what he's done for us, even in the bad times. So let's sing this together. We're going to sing My Testimony. So it's a little cheesy intro I just did. We're going to hit it off, and we're going to sing this together with energy and excitement this morning. Amen? All right.
I saw Satan fall like lightning. I saw darkness run for cover, but the miracle that I just can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. I believe in signs and wonders. You have resurrection power. Still the miracle that I just can't get over, my name it's registered in heaven. My praise belongs to you forever. This is my testimony from death to life. With grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. Sons and daughters, bought with blood and washed in water. Sing the praises of Spirit, Son, and Father. Our God will finish what he started. Yes, our God will finish what he started. This is my testimony from death to life. Grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. Yeah. I'm not dead, then you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, then you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, then you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, then you're not done. You're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. Yeah. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. Now I'm alive. This is my testimony from death to life. Grace rewrote my story. I'm justified. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. Yeah.
Good morning, church family. It's good to see y'all. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, what a great way to start out 2024 together, worshiping with our church family. So glad to see you this morning. Also, we have some pretty exciting things already getting kicked off this year. As you saw from that video, we have our Rush Creek Women's Conference coming up pretty soon, March 1st and 2nd. We are so excited. We love getting together with women from all of our campuses. This is a great opportunity to invite a friend, coworker, neighbor to come with you and join. It's just an incredible time of worship and growing together. And this year, we are super excited to be having a live in-person speaker. We have Christy Knuckles coming to join us at our women's conference this year. So we are super excited to have her. She's an incredible worship artist, podcast host, author, speaker. So it is just going to be an incredible time. Be sure to scan that QR code. Registration is open. So you can go ahead and sign up, send this to a friend and invite them. It is going to be awesome. Cade, what else do we have going on?
Yeah, this week is one of the best weeks of the year because Student Weekend is happening this weekend. Yeah, come on. So who all has helped out with Student Weekend before or attended as a student? So you guys know Student Weekend is a life-changing event. I mean, it's something that we put on every year, and God moves and blows our minds every single year. And so we are so excited that is happening this week. And we're bringing in an outside speaker. His name's Marquise Cox and a band called Move Love. The band was with us at camp this summer, so we're excited to have them back here with us this coming weekend. But what we need from you guys is prayer. Then we have so many spots that if you know somebody or have a student or you're a grandparent who's got grandkids, man, we'll take them. And so there we have a ton of room. We would love to have more students. We would love to, again, just see God move in ways that we can't even comprehend. And so we're praying for salvation. We're praying that life change happens this weekend. We're so excited for that. But yeah, what else we got going on, Hope?
Yes, we are so excited. Cannot wait to hear all the incredible stories of what God does through that weekend. And we're really excited to be kicking off and continuing in our Breakthrough series. Tomorrow actually launches our 21 days of prayer and fasting. So we are really excited to get into that today. This morning, if you didn't on your way in, grab them. There are some pieces of paper on those tables. Be sure to grab one of each. You'll need those later in the service. But let's stand and continue and worship together and pray. Father, thank you for this morning. God, thank you for just an opportunity to come together as a church family and gather and worship and seek your face. God, that is what we are here to do. And I pray for each one of us in this room with whatever we walked in with today, whatever we are carrying. God, I pray that you would remove all distractions and help us, Lord, to just hear from you. God, we are here to worship you, to hear you speak to us through your word. And God, I pray that we would be responsive to you today. We love you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Calling on the God of Jacob, whose love endures through generations. I know that you will keep your covenant. I'm calling on the God of Moses, the one who opened up the ocean. I need you now to do the same thing for me. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. You're faithful, God. You heard your children then. You hear your children now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You answered prayers back then, and you will answer now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You are providing then. You are providing now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You moved in power then. God, move in power now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You are a healer then. You are a healer now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You are a savior then. You are a savior now. You are the same God. You are the same God. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh, rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. Your faithfulness. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. Your faithfulness. I'm calling on the Holy Spirit. Almighty river, come and fill me again. Oh, come and fill me again. Oh, come and fill me again. Here is where I lay it down, every burden, every crown. This is my surrender. This is my surrender. Here is where I lay it down, every lie and every doubt. This is my surrender. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. Here is where I lay it down, every burden, every crown. This is my surrender. This is my surrender.
and I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to, and I will make room for you, Jesus, to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to, and I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to, and I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to, Jesus. We surrender. Have your way, Jesus. Have your way. We surrender. So shake up the ground of all my tradition, break down the walls, all my religion. Your way is better. Oh, your way is better. Shake up the ground, all my tradition, break down the walls, all my religion. Your way is better. Oh, your way is better. Shake up the ground, all my tradition, break down the walls, all my religion. Your way is better. Oh, your way is better. Shake up the ground, all my tradition, break down the walls, all my religion. Your way is better. Oh, your way is better. I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to, and I will make room for you, yeah, to do whatever you want to, do whatever you want to. Thank you, Jesus. We make room for you. Here is where I lay it down. You are all I'm chasing now. This is my surrender. This is my surrender. Here is where I lay it down. You are all I'm chasing now. This is my surrender.
Father, that's our prayer this morning. That we would make room for you to do whatever you want to. God, give us the boldness and the wisdom to step out in faith and share your love and your light and your hope with everyone around us. God, we love you, and it's in your heavenly, powerful name that we pray. Amen. Everyone be seated.
All right, well, good morning. All right, show of hands. How many came to the 11 o'clock last week? Remember, we did not have an 11 o'clock last week. Anybody? Nobody wants to. Okay, we got a couple. Okay, thank you. I know there are more than you because I talked to several this morning. And so if you missed kicking off the new year with us last week, we're glad you're here today to kick off the new year with us this morning. It's going to be great. We're launching into a new series, Breakthrough. Had a really, really incredible service last service. I'm excited to kind of get into everything today. So here's what I want you to do as we're getting started. Turn to Mark chapter 5. This is New Testament, Matthew, Mark chapter 5. That's where we're going to camp out. That's where we're going to kind of dig in this morning. But as you're turning there, I want to remind you of one of Jesus' most famous sayings in the entire New Testament, okay? It's one that we've talked about multiple times here at Rush Creek, Mira. I've preached on it before, and there's also a good chance that this saying of Jesus, this verse in Matthew is one that you have either like quoted before, or you've memorized it, or maybe you've shared it with a friend, or maybe it's a go-to verse for you. But even maybe if you're just kind of exploring faith this morning, there's a good chance that you probably maybe even at least heard this verse. So the question, though, before I put it up there is, as we're going to launch into today, is have you experienced this verse? Have you actually experienced what it talks about inside of this verse? Because, at the outset, let me just clarify. Acknowledging a truth is not the same thing as experiencing a truth, okay? Believing in a truth is not the same thing as experiencing a truth. Experiencing a truth happens when we say, okay, God says this, and I'm going to actually try to take some feet in towards that and move towards what Jesus said, okay? And so the question is going to be, have you experienced it? So I'm going to put it on the screen. I want us to all read it together. I know it's early. Hopefully you've had your coffee, but I want us to read this together out loud. Okay, here we go. Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. All right, show of hands. How many of you at least heard this before, okay? Very, very famous passage from Jesus. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, or weary and heavy laden, depending on what, translation you grew up hearing. And he says, I will give you rest. Now, what I want to ask before we jump over here to Mark in just a second is that have you ever noticed that within these 17 English words here, there is a two-sided interaction? Okay? First of all, there is an invitation. There's an invitation to come, okay? Come to me, you who are weary and burdened. But there's also a promise that when you come, here's the promise, I will give you rest, okay? And when Jesus is talking about rest, he's talking about peace. He's talking about reconnection with your heavenly Father. So as we kind of outset, basically, Jesus is saying, in terms of us today, for all of you in the room today, everybody that came to Rush Creek, the Mira Lagos, for all of you who are feeling weary and tired, and maybe a little bit beat down by life, or maybe you're going through a difficult time or just kind of an overwhelming struggle right now, the invitation for all of us is to come to him. Now notice, the passage does not say, believe in me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. That wasn't the only caveat. There's an action here. There's an implied response to the invitation to come and experience what he said. So he doesn't just say, believe in me, but come. Because we're talking about a little bit this morning is that belief, friends, belief should always prompt response in our pursuit of peace. Belief should always prompt response in our pursuit of peace. Because inevitably, when we get to one of those points where we find ourselves needing like a breakthrough, like God, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I don't know how to deal with this anymore, I'm at my wit's end, I don't know how to fix things, the whirlwind is just kind of caught up to me and everything is chaos. Whenever we get to these points where we really feel like we need a breakthrough, we have to decide not only what we believe, especially if you're a follower of Jesus this morning, but like, how am I going to respond based on what I believe as I'm looking at this thing in my life. Now, here at Rush Creek, we absolutely believe, with no qualifications, that Jesus is the only source of lasting help, healing, and peace. We believe like in the story, he's the only source of lasting health, healing, help, and peace. But what we also know here at Rush Creek, all across all our different campuses all over the Metroplex this morning, is that for many of us that walked into the room today, and you're sitting in your chair right now listening to me, many of us today are experiencing anything but help, healing, hope, and peace. I mean, let's just be honest this morning. Let's just be candid. There's some of you in here today, like your marriage is literally hanging on by a thread. And maybe you walk into the room today and you didn't even talk this morning. It's just kind of been one of those days. And like the next thing could be the breaking point for us. There's people in the room.
There's some of you that came in the room today that you, if you're being honest and you're being transparent, you have debilitating addictions. Maybe it's pornography, maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's people pleasing, and it's gotten to that point to where you're so consumed with what people think of you that it's just kind of destroyed everything about your life. There are people that are probably sitting in front of you or next to you, or maybe you yourself that are physically and emotionally and spiritually just exhausted today as they stepped into church because of the burdens of debt or depression or infertility or sickness or some type of broken relationship, with your child, with your parent, with your spouse, whatever it may be. But here's the good news this morning. All across the room, we can kind of go around and we've all got things, myself included, that we're wrestling with, that we're struggling with. But this is the reason why Jesus gave this invitation. It says that when Jesus looked out at the world and just kind of like took everything in his humanity, it said that he had compassion because we were like sheep without a shepherd, like people going through every day with hurts and brokenness and struggles and difficulties and not knowing where to turn or how to fix it, and at the end of our rope and at the end of our capabilities. And so in the midst of that chaos, Jesus issues this invitation that says, hey, come to me. Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. So this morning, I don't know what your thing is. I don't know what you brought into the room today. I don't know the thing that stresses you out and keeps you up at night. I don't know the thing that you're wrestling with right now, or if you're wrestling with something kind of on the forefront of your mind right now. But here's what we want to accomplish over the next couple of weeks with this series and also with our 21 days of prayer and fasting. We really want to accomplish two things. One, we want to help you to anchor your belief to Jesus' promise of peace. Like, no, I believe this is possible. I believe that Jesus, can provide something that I can't do on my own. We want to help you anchor your belief to his promise of peace. But the second thing we want to do, and this is where the prayer and fasting comes in, is that we want to give you an opportunity to actually respond. Okay? Because not just believe that he could change whatever it is that you brought in today, but like take a step towards him in the midst of what you're going through right now. And that's where the 21 days of prayer and fasting comes, because it's an opportunity for you to come to Jesus in a very real way with anticipation to maybe get help from Jesus. You get that rest, you get that connection, you get that help. And what I want to do today is look at a really, really incredible passage that shows us what this is supposed to look like for those of us that are running after Jesus. So we're going to pick up in Mark chapter 5, a really, really common, famous story of Jesus. Is actually one that I've never had the opportunity to teach until today. So I'm really excited to kind of get into this. But let's just start here in verse 25 and kind of get the backstory. Okay, it says this. It says, now a woman suffering from bleeding for listen to this, 12 years. A woman suffering from bleeding for 12 years had endured much under many doctors. And it tells us that she had spent everything she had and was not helped at all. On the contrary, she became worse. Now, before we move on to the interaction, because we're about to see one of the coolest interactions between Jesus and another person, I think, in the entire New Testament. But before we do that, I need you to understand the magnitude of her situation. Mark is setting things up, and his initial Jewish audience would have made a lot of connections that we won't necessarily connect with because we don't live in that society in that time. But there's a lot of information in these first couple verses that give us a picture of how absolutely desperately tragic this woman's life was. So before we can understand the magnitude of the interaction we're about to see, you need to understand the magnitude of the situation. So first of all, he tells us this woman had gone 12 years with a medical condition of constant, persistent bleeding. Now, it doesn't give us any more information, so, it's likely this had something to maybe do with menstruation, or maybe it could have been something else. It could have been some type of open wound or whatnot. We don't know exactly for sure, but what we do know is that whatever it was causing constant, nonstop, every single day bleeding. Like there was no breaks for 12 years. No medical treatment could help her out. No options. No anything she pursued. Nothing fixed it. So, every single day, this woman woke up to the exact same struggle. Day after day after day after day. And days turns to weeks after weeks after weeks. It doesn't get better. It doesn't go away. It doesn't lessen. It doesn't stop. It doesn't get a break. Weeks turn to months. Month after month after month. Every single day. Month after month turns into years. To where she'd woken up to the same reality for 12 years. Listen, when COVID first started hitting, and for many of you in the room that had to go through different things with that, like when we have like fever or body aches or shortness of breath for like 7, 10, 14 days, it feels like an eternity, right? We're like, oh my gosh, when is this going to finally end? Can you imagine having a physical ailment where you can't go to the doctor and get medicine? There's not a treatment that alleviates the problem for 12 years. But that's only the tip of the iceberg, because this is where they will start to connect the original audience, cultural things that maybe we're not thinking of, because it wasn't just physical misery for 12 years. Also, it says that she spent everything she had, all of her money, all of her resources, trying to find a solution. Said she suffered much under many doctors. So she went to every single person. She went to her primary care physician. She went to that really, new age crazy lady over here, that was doing. She tried everything she could possibly do to fix the problem. And she used every bit of her money to the point now that she'd been forced into poverty, okay? So think about this. Not only is she dealing with perpetual bleeding every single day for 12 years, but it's forced her into being a beggar. She's used every bit of money, but for all of that investment, all that time, everything she could do, it didn't fix, it didn't pause. In fact, it tells us that it got worse. Are you starting to kind of get the magnitude? Because that's still the tip of the iceberg. Because in Leviticus, okay, in culture in Jesus' day and time, there's a specific passage in Leviticus chapter 18 that said if a woman was bleeding outside of her normal cycle, she was considered unclean and could not participate in most of the normal things until the bleeding stopped. So if there was some kind of issue or irregularity until that was resolved or went away, that person could not step back into and be part of the normal things of society. And what it meant was that for this woman, because she was considered unclean, anyone that would be around her, that would have a direct interaction with her, would also be considered unclean, okay? So track with me. If you slept in the same bed as this woman, you were considered ceremonially unclean in Jewish culture at this time. If you sat in the same chair that she sat in, you would be considered unclean because you came into interaction with something that she did while she was unclean. If you bumped into her while walking down the street and knew of her situation, you would be considered ceremonially unclean as well because you had contact with this woman who was considered unclean. Now, what does that mean? That meant that in that day and age, if you were unclean, you could not go to the temple. You could not worship in the public places. You couldn't go and hear the public reading of God's word. You couldn't pray in the public places. You couldn't be part of the sacrifices and celebrations that were part of everyday Jewish culture. Now remember, too, in this day and age, the temple worship, it was central to everything for a Jewish believer. It was central to family. It was central to God. It was central to worship. It was central to work. Everything hinged on this. So she was alienated from the very spiritual foundation and substance that was central to her culture. And because of that, and because if you came in contact with her, relationally, nobody wanted to be around this woman because they don't want to be taken away from the very thing that was central to their culture either, right? So it's very likely that this woman was not married. This woman likely did not have any children, and this woman probably had no friends because nobody wanted to be near her or touch her or come in contact with her because that took them out of the thing that she was missing out on as well, okay? Are you tracking with me? I'm trying to build a picture because you can't understand the story that happens next unless you understand the magnitude of the picture. This is a woman, okay, who was physically, emotionally, relationally, and spiritually destitute at this point after 12 years. Physically, suffering, 12 years. Emotionally, can you imagine everybody rejecting you? Nobody wanted to do anything with you. You can't worship. You can't go into the public places. You walk down the street and people see you and they walk the other way. If a children's running by you, a parent grabs them and pulls them away so they don't touch your unclean body. Can you imagine the emotional toll that would take on you? Relationally, no connections. Everyone's rejecting her. And she'd exhausted every possible. She knew this was miserable. She knew this was a terrible life, and she'd exhausted every penny, every cent, everything she had to try to fix the problem so that was not her life. But it just got worse. And it just got worse. And now she's got no resources, nothing left to do, so she's exhausted every single possibility, except one day she hears about Jesus. And this woman lived in Capernaum. Capernaum is where Jesus is kind of home base once he started his actual ministry. This is where he would continue to come back to by the Sea of Galilee on the north side. And so she starts to hear all this talk like there's a new rabbi. And he's coming out, and this guy has been rumored to he's been healing people, like lepers, people that were kind of similar situation, unclean, couldn't be part of society. He was doing healings and all these types of things. So she thought, I've done everything else. There's nothing else I can do. I've spent my whole last 12 years trying to fix this problem. There's no other option, but maybe something can happen with Jesus. And listen to what her mindset, we get a little picture of what she was thinking in verse 28. It says, for she said, okay, if I can just touch his clothes, once he's in town, once he's here, if I can find a way to just get near enough to him to touch his clothes, and that's all. And I'll tell you, you'll understand why that's all she said here in just a minute, okay? That's as far as the engagement would go. But in her mind, if I could just get close enough to Jesus to touch his clothes, then maybe I will be made well. So this is kind of what she's thinking, and she knew that to do that was going to be extremely risky, okay? Because again, track with me, okay? She was an unclean, outcast beggar over here, right? Jesus, on the other hand, was a highly revered, influential, powerful rabbi that's over here, right? People like her were not allowed to be around people like him. She was unclean. He was clean. She couldn't come in contact with him. And so trying to get anywhere near him would be risky because people wouldn't let her near him. And she knew that there was a chance that if she got near enough to touch him, she would make him unclean because she was unclean as well. But she didn't have any other options. And with no other options, what we're about to see is that desperation kicked in for this woman. It's the only thing else I can do. Now, before we see what happens, because, I'm telling you, this is seriously one of the most powerful, when you kind of break some of this apart, things maybe you've never thought about before here. Before we see what happens, let me say this about desperation. I think that you and I could probably use a little bit more. You see, desperation usually for us kicks in at the point we realize that there really is nothing that we can do going forward. Like we can't fix it. We can't, deal with it, whatever your struggle is, whatever thing that you brought in here today that's just heavy on you, and you're trying to do your best to figure it out. But desperation kicks in at the point where we realize we have no control. I can keep exhausting all my resources emotionally, spiritually, financially, whatever it may be, but I can't fix this. And desperation usually kicks in at that point when we realize we don't have control. Like unless something outside of my situation comes inside of my situation, there will be no resolution to my situation, right? And so for most people, desperation is like the worst possible place to be because they think that's where there's no other options. But what if, friends, what if going into 2024, we flipped that? What if instead of desperation being the last option when we hit rock bottom, desperation is a mentality that we approach everything with from the beginning? Because desperation is the point where self-help has to be abandoned. Self-help, I can't fix it anymore, has to be abandoned, and faith has to be embraced. But what if we did that on the front end instead of always trying to figure things out, and then we'll do a Hail Mary every once in a while when things are not going what we're trying to do, and so we're like, oh God, I need you to help me now here because my plan is not working how I want it to. What if we flip that and we start at the beginning with desperation and realize I don't have as much control of my life as I think I do, and I need you to help me and guide me with what to do rather than going the opposite way. Because desperation, like that rock bottom point, that's the place where people that don't even believe in God, right? They'll throw up prayers to God, right? I don't even believe in God. I've been an atheist my whole life, but once I got that diagnosis for cancer, I found myself praying, God, if you are real, if I've missed this boat, if somehow you are out there, I am desperate. Because I can't do anything about it, and I've exhausted everything, and they have nothing else to look towards. And so in desperation, they'll throw up those prayers of, God, if you're there, or, my marriage, God, I never thought it would be here. I don't even know if you're there. I don't know if you believe, but God, if you are there, would you help me fix this? And here's the great thing. Our Heavenly Father, friends, who is so loving and gracious and patient with us, He often uses these rock bottom moments or these moments of desperation to remind us, okay, of the invitation and the promise. Invitation, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened. I know you've been walking through this. I've been waiting for you to come to me. And the promise of when you do, I'm going to step inside of your situation, inside of your circle, and I'm going to help you as you walk through that. And for some people, it takes till they get to that worst, absolute, desperate place before they'll come to him. And even then, because he's gracious and loving and merciful, he says, okay, come to me. Here's the invitation. Here's the promise. But you're going to have to believe in me. You're going to have to come to me and let me work what only I can do in you. So this woman had no other options on the table. She's exhausted everything financially. Doctors couldn't heal her. Money couldn't save her. Everybody else in her life had rejected her, so the only option left was Jesus. But before we see it happens, one more thing. This is not just a biblical story, okay? This is not just, a recounting of an event that happened 2,000 years ago. This is the human story, because you will get to places and points and situations where you're looking at something in the face that you can't fix. I will never forget, I told this story many, many times here. I will never forget sitting in a doctor's office after years of trying to have children, only to be told that there was a likelihood of us ever being able to have children on our own was likely impossible. And we were crushed. Because for years we had been trying to start a family, for years, and we were poor back in the day. I mean, seminary and teachers, we were poor, okay? We did not, and we're trying to figure out, we were exhausted emotionally and physically and financially, and we've been trying to do every avenue, and we finally got to kind of this last ditch, maybe this person can help us, only to hear, hey, it's likely probably not going to happen for you, at least not on your own. It can be very, very difficult. And we were all of a sudden faced with a point to where prayer and petition and coming to Jesus, that was no longer an option. That was the only option. That was the only option, was to come and ask God to step in and help us. And the same thing is the situation for this woman. So look what happens, okay? This is so cool. Verse 27. So having heard about Jesus, she did what she planned, and she came up behind him one day when he's in town, in the crowd, and she touched his clothing. And then you jump down to verse 29, it says that as soon as she did that, instantly her flow of blood ceased, and she sensed in her body that she was healed of her affliction. Now, it doesn't tell us how she knew or exactly what told her she was, but she knew in that moment that something had happened. But it says also in verse 30, at once, the same instant she realizes that is the instant that Jesus realized in himself that power had gone out from him. And so he turned around in the crowd and said, who touched my clothes? Now, I didn't read this, but back in verse 24, it kind of sets us up. It said that there was a very large crowd with Jesus this day, and it actually said that everyone was like pressing up against him, okay? So I want you to think Buc-ee's on spring break, right? Like you can't even move, you can't get to the fudge, you can't get your beaver nuggets, you can't even walk through all the chaos because everybody's around and pushing and shoving, and you can't move without getting bumped by somebody or touched by somebody. That was literally what was happening, because everybody, when Jesus would come back into town, he was doing these amazing things. Everybody wanted to be around the guy that could do amazing things. Everybody wanted to bring the person they loved that was sick or hurting or struggling to the person who was rumored to be healing and doing supernatural things. So whenever Jesus would make an appearance, so did the crowd, and everybody's pushing and shoving. But the woman was going to use this to her advantage, because her plan was, I have to sneak up in the chaos of the crowd. That is my only chance to get near him and touch just the hem of his robe. I'm not going to get close enough to touch his body, just if I could just touch his robe. And here's why she had to sneak in and do it. Because she knew that because she was unclean, when she got around that crowd, everybody that bumped into her would now be unclean as well. Every person that she rubbed against, she tried to get to Jesus. So she had to do this in secrecy. She had to do this in hiding. But she also knew that might give her an opportunity to get close enough to touch Jesus' garment. And maybe, just maybe, she could find some healing there. Maybe not touch his person, because, it would make him unclean too as well. But again, she was desperate. So under the chaos of the crowd was her only chance to maybe get near him, because the people saw her coming and Jesus was alone. They wouldn't let her get near him. They knew her story. They knew her background. So she had to do this and sneak in the crowd, risking getting everybody around her unclean as well as they were bumping into her. She didn't want them to know about it. She certainly didn't want to be held responsible for making Jesus unclean, okay? So she didn't want anybody to know. That would be the worst case scenario. But if I could just get in there long enough to touch his garment, maybe I'll be healed. And I'm going to get up out of there before anything else happens. Now, she has some really bad theology, okay? This kind of reflects probably more like pagan mysticism, kind of magic kind of thing. If I could just touch something he's touched, that's going to, heal me. But again, she hadn't been able to go to the temple for 12 years. She hadn't been able to sit under and learn about these things. But this was her final hope. And so everything, she went according to plan. She goes in. She's brushing against people. She's probably got her head covered so people can't see who she is. She's infecting everybody around her. But she gets close enough and she touches his garment. And the moment she does, she knows in that instant that she's been healed. And she can't believe it. This is one of the questions I want to ask someday in heaven. Like, how did you know? She can't believe it. But the moment she realized that she'd been healed, you know what her immediate thought was? Now I have to get up out of here before people see that I'm in the crowd. I have got to get away before people realize who I am and what has just happened. I have got to get out of here. Because the moment she touched it, she knew she was healed, but now she's got to get out. But there was a problem because it tells us the moment she touched Jesus' robe was the moment that Jesus, the same moment, stopped walking and turns around and he asks the disciples, hey, who touched me? And they're like, this is Buc-ee's. Everybody has touched you. Every person in this crowd has touched you, okay? What do you mean, who has touched me? And in that moment, this woman begins to panic. Great joy and overwhelming relief suddenly is overwhelmed by fear and anxiety. Luke tells us in his account of this story that she knew she'd been discovered. I think it's probably because, as Jesus said this, in my mind, he's probably looking straight at her. And she knows that she's caught. So listen to what happens because she knows she's caught in verse 33. So the woman, listen, with fear and with trembling, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. Does she come with awe and praise and gratitude initially? Is that what it says? No. She was caught. She had done something that was completely unforgivable in culture. And what would happen with this mob crowd if they found out that she had been touching all these people, make everything clean, and she had touched the rabbi? She had made Jesus unclean. I mean, they could like mob try to like kill this woman. She has no idea. And she is terrified of what Jesus will say and what the crowd will do when they find out who she is and what she's just done, and that nobody can go to church that day, okay? Because nobody was going to be allowed into the holy places. But she confesses and she falls down before him and she just tells him the whole truth. Listen, Jesus, I'm so sorry. I know I shouldn't have done this. I know I shouldn't have touched you. I'm sorry. I made everybody unclean. But listen, it's 12 years and it has been awful my whole life. Like, I have no friends. I have no family. I have no hope. I have no anything. I am broken and desperate and hurting. And she just starts to, lay everything out and say what's going on. And this is where Jesus, in one of the most intentional and beautiful moments in the New Testament, he looks at this woman who is pleading her case for mercy because of what she's just done. In verse 34, he says, daughter, he said to her, your faith has saved you. Go in peace and be healed from your affliction. Now think about this. Jesus could have just let her go. He knew she'd been healed. He didn't have to call her out and call her back. She'd been healed of her malady, of her sickness. But Jesus needed her to understand that what she'd experienced wasn't some pagan, random magic. What she'd experienced was connection to the one that said, come to me with your burdens and I can give you something you can't supply to yourself. He needed to connect the dots, that this wasn't happenstance in some kind of mystic paganism. This was connection with the Son of God who invites the broken to come to him so he can give them rest they can't foster on their own. Jesus didn't want her to walk away just physically healed. Jesus wanted her to walk away whole. So he says, no, daughter. That's the only time Jesus says daughter in the entire New Testament. The only person we have Jesus recorded calling daughter is this woman. So she's expecting a rebuke. She made him unclean. She's touched him. She's touched she's touched everybody. But she doesn't get a rebuke. She gets called by a name of affection for the first time in who knows how long. Daughter. And then Jesus does something that was so important. He clarifies what just happened. Hey, it wasn't my robe. It's not about magic. Listen, your faith in me is what healed you. What healed you was my promise of rest and peace that can only come from me and the things you can't do. And listen, you didn't make me unclean. I made you clean. You ever thought about this? This interaction is a picture of what would happen on the cross. Jesus would take our brokenness, our infirmities, our sicknesses, our depressions, our addictions, our sinful struggles, our mess-ups, our screw-ups, our backstories, our shortcomings. He took all of that on himself and gave us his life in place so that we don't have to suffer from the judgment and consequence of our own sin and actions, which separates us from God now and through eternity, so that we don't have to endure what is right and just because God is perfect and we are not, but instead he gives us his life and he takes all that mess And he wanted to understand, hey, what happened today was about connection with you and me. Your faith has healed you. Because I've been saying it from the beginning, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened and heavy laden and messed up. I'll give you what you're looking for, but you can't find in sex, you can't find in money, you can't find in jobs, you can't find in relationships, you can't find anywhere else. But you can find it in me. And then I love this last phrase because he says, go in peace and be healed. Now, it says she was already healed from her physical malady a couple verses back, right? And I think that Jesus was saying, hey, your faith in me as who I said I am has healed you. I think this was a moment of salvation for her. This was a moment of realizing he is who he said he was, and he takes all of my brokenness. And so not only was she healed for the moment, she was healed for the path forward. Now, she was still going to, on this side of heaven and eternity, she was still going to have struggles and challenges. They wouldn't be the same, but she would found something that was a healing that would supersede all of them, including this 12-year battle. And listen, it didn't happen just because she believed it was possible. What would happen if she just sat in her home in Capernaum and just prayed, okay, I believe that Jesus might could do this? No, that belief had to prompt her to respond, to come to him, so that she experienced only what he could do, only what he could give, only what he could provide. So here's what we're going to do as we close today, and we're launching into this series, but also as we're launching into our 21 days of prayer and fasting that we're doing as a whole church. Listen, every week as your pastor, I wake up with my own struggles. I wake up with my own insecurities and my own things that I'm not doing well or that I'm wrestling with or they're not going how I plan, and I just have to do the same thing that every one of us do. God, I can't do this anymore. I need to release. I'm tired. I'm weary. And I don't know what you brought in here today that keeps you up at night, and it's the first thing you think about when you wake up in the morning and the thing that weighs on your heart and all the minutes in between. I don't know if it's an addiction. I don't know if it's a broken relationship. I don't know if it's a cancer. I don't know if it's a wayward child. I don't know if it's a relationship with a parent. I don't know what it may be that you are just desperately needing breakthrough from right now in your life. But in 2024, what if instead of making desperation the last-ditch effort, we flip the script and make desperation the mentality with which we approach Jesus every day, with every situation, and don't just wait for the rock-bottom moments, but we come at the beginning believing that he is really the only hope, because our self-help can only go so far. And then in 2024, we're going to come to him in desperation, believing that he can intervene. And we're going to talk about this more over the next couple weeks too, but listen, I just want to understand too that breakthrough doesn't always look like resolution exactly how you think it's going to look either. It's not always exactly how I'm praying or exactly what I'm wanting to do. Sometimes breakthrough is connecting to your Creator in the midst of it as you're trying to walk through on your own. There's all kinds of different ways and shapes, but the promise is that no matter what happens, no matter what we're walking through, there will be a breakthrough where he invites us to come to him, and then he will step into our brokenness and walk us with it, through it, on the other side of it, in the middle of it, and he knows what it is before you even bring it to him. And so he invites you to start the process of letting him help you. Sometimes he will answer that prayer exactly like what you're praying because he's powerful, he's God, he can do whatever he wants. Sometimes he allows us to go through seasons of difficulty because that pushes us towards him when otherwise we would run away from him. Sometimes he allows hardship to change our hearts and a lot of situations to kind of move us. And sometimes he changes everything for the better. But he always promises us his peace and leading because his invitation is to come and let me give you what you can't foster on your own. So what's that for you today? What are you going into 2024 weighted down by? Everybody in the room is going to look different. Or maybe you're in a good season right now. But we want to kick off 21 days of prayer and fasting with some desperation of God. We are tired of trying to fix life on our own, and we want to come to you and let you lead us in this. We've exhausted, just like this woman had exhausted all of her finances, we've exhausted all of my financial energy, my emotional energy, everything I've got nothing left. So will you come in and take my nothing and hold my hand and walk me towards breakthrough? So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to close in just a minute by me sharing what we're going to be doing with our 21 days and some prayer nights and opportunities. But right now, everybody that came in the room, you got 2 sheets of paper. There's a blue one and there's a white one. And most of our chairs should have pens in the backs right in front of you. If not, reach to the side. There should be one down there. Here's what I want you to do. We're going to give you a couple minutes. And the blue paper is there something in your life right now that you need a breakthrough in 2024? You don't know the answer. You don't know the solution. It could be a whole lot of different things. What is it that right now you're praying for God to bring a breakthrough in your life right now? And what I want you to do is I want you to boldly write that out on that paper. Don't sign your name because we're actually going to use these and we're going to be praying over these over the next 21 days. People are going to have the opportunity to pray for your breakthrough, so don't put your name on it. But I want you to write honestly, this is where I am just wrestling. And I am at my end and I need help. And if you're in a great season right now, maybe it's somebody around you that needs a breakthrough. Maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a sibling, maybe it's a child. Maybe you just want to be praying for theirs if you're in one of those seasons right now. But write down, this is where I need breakthrough, God. This is where I need to be like this woman and realize I can't do anything else on my own. I need to come to you and trust that you will help me to find the breakthrough that only you can foster because you invite me to come to you and find rest. And here in just a moment, we're going to sing this song over you, and we're going to bring this display up to the front. You're going to see it's already has hundreds of white pieces of paper and blue pieces of paper wrapped up in there from our first service. And I want you to just come and you're going to roll it up and you're going to stick it in this wall. This is going to be something we have the opportunity to pray over as a church over the next coming weeks. But the white piece of paper is where have you seen a breakthrough in your life? Where have you seen God be faithful in a situation? Where have you seen him come through? And if you have something like that, we would love for you to write that on a piece of paper and put it in there as well so that this wall is a testimony of struggles that our church is facing, but also evidences with the white paper that God shows up, that God hears, that God moves, that God cares. Little testimony both. So you could do both. You could just do one, depending on where you're at. But we're going to give you the opportunity to just be honest with yourself in 2024. What do I need breakthrough in? And then I'm going to give you some instructions on 21 days of prayer, and we'll let you guys go today. But right now, would you honestly write on that piece of paper? Again, don't sign your name because people are going to be reading this and people are going to be praying over this. But be honest. Or be honest about where I've seen God show up so that other people that are struggling and wondering if he will can see, man, there's some white out here as well. There's some hope in the midst of the blue. And at any point during this next song, you can come and it's just like a wire thing. You just roll up your request and stick it in there. Nobody can read it while you're putting it in. Nobody's going to know it's yours. And stick those pieces of paper in that wall while we sing this song over you. So at any point, you can come to the forward and do that. And then I'm going to close with some instructions for prayer because that's our response. We want to believe that God can do it, believe the invitation is real. Our 21 days is an opportunity for us to take an action, just to take a step to come towards him. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. So right now, write that down. And then whenever you're ready, at any point, from now till this next song is over, you can come up and you can stick that inside of this wall. It's two-sided, so you can come on either side, down the middle, and stick this in there. And then I will close out our time together. So at any point you're ready to move, you may, as we share our breakthroughs with our Heavenly Father.
There must be more beyond familiar shores, into waters unexplored. This one desire stirring here in me, deep is calling out to deep. Take me from where I've
clears my defenses, opens the impossible. It's so amazing how you take the ashes and turn them into beautiful. Take me from where I've been into something new. I'm giving up control. I need a breakthrough. All of my dreams and fears are crashing into you. You're waking up my hope. You are my breakthrough. You're making all things new. You're making all things new. It's what you always do. You are my breakthrough. You're making all things new. You're making all things new. It's what you always do. You are my breakthrough. You're making all things new. You're making all things new. It's what you always do. You are my breakthrough. You're making all things new. You're making all things new. It's what you always do. You are my breakthrough. Take me from where I've been into something new. I'm giving up control. You are my breakthrough. All of my dreams and fears are crashing into you. I'm lifting up my hope. You are my breakthrough. Take me from where I've been into something new. I'm giving up control. You are my breakthrough. All of my dreams and fears are crashing into you. You're waking up my hope. You are my breakthrough. My breakthrough. Come Take me from where I've been into something new. I'm giving up control. You are my breakthrough. All of my dreams and fears are crashing into you. You're waking up my hope. You are my breakthrough.
I know many of you are still coming. That's fine. We're in no rush. Less and less holes available as we start filling these up with the things that we're praying. There's a lot of blue in here, friends. There's a lot of hardship between the room. There's a lot of things that we're wrestling with as people, as broken people in a broken world. But you know what? There's also a lot of white in here too, friends. Papers that say God has shown up in my past, and some people have both today because you're going through the difficulty of one, but you're holding on to how God was faithful in another, and it just brings this realization that we can run after Him, we can trust in Him, and so we'll continue to let you come down and do this. But as we do, let me tell you, and you can be listening whether you're standing in line or in your seat, what we want to do for the next 21 days. Listen, if you've never fasted before, fasting is a spiritual discipline to where you give something up. So when that impulse to reach out for that something comes, whether it's food or whether it's social media or whatever it may be, that instead of responding to that impulse, you seize that as a moment to come to God with the thing that you're praying for right now, that you're asking for breakthrough or for help. That's why when people fast from food and they feel hungry, it's a reminder, go to the Lord who supplies everything we need for strength, for sustenance, and call out to Him. It reminds us when we want to reach for our phone to get on Facebook mindlessly or Instagram or TikTok, I'm going to take that moment instead to reiterate and go to the Lord and say, God, I need your help with whatever it may be on that piece of paper for you. And so Our prayer and fasting starts tomorrow, and here's what we want you to do. On our app, it's really the easiest way. If you don't have our app, you can get it. We have a 21-day breakthrough plan that has a reading plan where you can walk through. We're going to read a chapter of the Gospel of John every single day, 21 days in the book of John. It has stuff that talks about what you can fast from, and if you've never done this or you're new, just kind of some information of what to think about or what you might consider and what it means and where it comes from. And it's just going to walk you every single day through what you can do. And the point of this is whatever you wrote on that card for 21 days, you take that energy that you would give to that other thing that you're giving up and you say, God, would you please show up in the midst of this? Give me a breakthrough of seeing that you're near. Give me a breakthrough of overcoming the struggle. Give me a breakthrough of just help in the midst of the struggle that I haven't seen before. Whatever that needs to be right now, would you please just show me that you're here and that your invitation was not some empty religious placebo that people talk about? That those that don't believe in God will accuse us who are believers. Well, you're just looking for some kind of hope in a world that is hopeless and has no meaning. No, we're looking to hope that has shown up time and time again for thousands of years in the lives of millions of people that comes from the only man to call, predict, and then pull off his own resurrection. And where he goes, we go. And we step in and we call out to Jesus, just like this woman called out to Jesus as our only hope. So 21 days of prayer, you can start that. You can go through the reading plan we have for you on the app. You can go online if you're not a phone person. It is on the website. 21 days. And then we're also going to open up the building for 2 different nights leading up to we're going to close our series with a night of worship. On the 28th, all of our campuses together at the Green Oaks campus for a final time of celebration and worship and prayer. But between then, tomorrow night, 6:30 to 8:30, and then on Monday night, the 22nd, 6:30 to 8:30, we're going to open up the worship center for 2 hours. Where you can come in and maybe you just need to get away from your house and the craziness and your phone and whatever to kick things off. Maybe that'll be your first meal that you want to give up tomorrow night for dinner. So you're just going to come in here and you're going to spend an hour or 30 minutes. It's going to be it's not highly regimented. There's no service flow. It's just about a place to kind of get away from your whirlwind. We're going to have some prompts to help you pray if you want that. Opportunity to come in tomorrow night and maybe pull a couple of these cards out and pray for people you've never even met. You don't even know their name. But it's just another way for you to step outside and come pray. So tomorrow night, 6:30 to 8:30, as we kick things off, the building's going to be open. I'm going to be here. Would love for you to come and pray. Again, you can be here for 10 minutes. You can be here for 2 hours, whatever you need to do to just start things off. And we're going to be praying, God, as a church, we're calling out for breakthrough. We're calling out on the only one who can give us rest. And we're believing that you're going to show up. We're believing that you can bring what only you promise. So would you join us? If you've never done this before, maybe you've been in Rush Creek, we do this every January with 21 days, and you're like, I don't really fast, it's not my thing. Why not try it? You don't have to give up everything. Find something to gateway fasting, okay? Find that first thing. Maybe it's a meal a day. Maybe it is something like social media, or maybe it's something a little more involved, depending on where you are and what the Spirit's calling you to do. But just try. I encourage you to join in with us. Follow along with the prayer, be praying. And this series in these 21 days, it's us believing in the promise and finding a way to actively move towards it. So as we close our service today, we're going to have our prayer team and some pastors at the front. If you want to pray with anybody about something specific, we had a couple that came down and wanted to pray afterwards. We're going to be here for a couple minutes. If not, I'm just going to ask you right now, we're going to kind of just keep this room prayerful as you exit today. And we'll see you next Sunday, or we'll see you tomorrow night, 6:30 to 8:30. But let's begin praying now for breakthrough. We love you. See you soon.